At Trailblazers practice yesterday, a handful of Trailblazers players, Don McClingan, Tumani Kamara, Robert Williams III, were all made available. And basically all of them had some version of it come out and say there was an airing of grievances. There was Robert Williams III used elephants in the room, multiple elephants.
I got a lot of problems with you people.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot of it's a lot of Festivus right there when you got multiple elephants in the room. I've talked to a couple players since then and kind of got an understanding of kind of where things are, and it's they actually sound like they're better now. Not that it's fixed, but like,
well, were we talking like mentally in a better place?
Yeah, and just in that sense, I don't know if that leads to a better production tonight or a better effort, but there was some stuff that was building up. Robert Williams III basically said that he didn't think that this kind of thing would have happened even just a couple of weeks ago, in the sense of like being able to have it, because there's kind of, it's not the dark side, but it's something that fans in general, this isn't a Blazers fans thing, this is a fans thing in general. There's this idea in sports, it's like this altruistic thing that everybody comes together for the team, and the team is all that matters, and the goal of the season is all that matters. That's just not true, and nobody likes hearing that. And you can look up and down any sport. The magical sauce that comes together to form a title team is very unique and very special. And the reason why a lot of times you get the title hangover is because of competing interests. And a lot of reasons why you get title runs is pretty simple, in that you've got those competing forces all kind of driving towards the same goal. And sometimes it's for, I don't want to say selfish, but I'll use selfish because I can't think of a better word for it right now. Their own personal goals, their own personal gains. And part of what ends up happening with these tanking teams is, and I'm not saying this is happening.
I was hoping you're going to turn this to tanking teams after starting out talking about title repeaters.
Yeah, no. I'm saying
like, very far off from that.
No, that's what I'm saying. There's the, like, even at the very top, it's difficult. At the bottom, it's even more difficult because they know, the guys, they know where they're at.
Yeah.
And there's this ideal of, look, Scoot's competing to try to get starting minutes so that he can be ready for his next contract. Shaedon is trying to do the same thing. DeAndre Ayton is 2 years away, which means next year he's eligible for a contract extension. Anthony Simons is the same thing.
Yeah.
Robert Williams III is trying to go out there and prove that he can stay healthy, not just for the Trailblazers, but if he is moved. Like, everybody has like, whether you want to or willingly admit that that's the case. And you've got dynamics at play at all times. And this isn't just to this Trailblazers team, but openly saying, hey, look, I need to be able to do X, Y, and Z. I need you to do A, B, and C. And being able to have a no BS conversation in the sense of trying to understand it.
So I guess in that sense, how much even more of a detriment, how much is that all exacerbated by having a lame duck coach?
I don't think it is. Because
really?
No, and here's the thing: just in talking to players, and this may shock you. I asked a couple of them if they felt that Chauncey might be fired if things go sideways, and none of them said yes. They were all kind of like unaware of like that it could possibly, it was even an option.
Well, I think we all came into the season knowing that he was going to be a lame duck coach the entire season, and next season there will be a new coach.
But the idea that the way people look at that is not the way players look at it. It's just not. It's holistically different, and I don't know why that is. It's an interesting thought. It's an interesting like study of how that stuff works.
Is it the same way that so many players' favorite dude is Russell Westbrook?
Yeah, where you're just like, you're not wrong. Like, or how much guys love Kyrie. Like the difference between who he is and who he isn't on and off the court, and how he interacts with play. Like, and it's like once you're in there, you're insulated from a lot of that stuff. And because I don't care what anybody else thinks, good, bad, or otherwise, about Chauncey Billups as a coach. The thing that the nail that I have been driving on this discussion the entire time is very simple. he has their ear and he has their respect. And it carries so much weight in professional sports. When you're a Hall of Famer who a lot of these guys were either alive or like have the idea of Chauncey Billups still playing and being a title winner and being on that Pistons team, like that whole ethos still rings true and he's able to connect with them.
So I guess when it comes to the argument of he's a Hall of Famer, and we'll go back, and I'm sure that I will probably be proven wrong in several aspects here. Throughout your I'm not even going to say Hall of Fame coaches, but I'll just leave it at even like successful coaches, very successful coaches. How many of those guys were like the at the top of the class, most talented Hall of Fame level players? Because a lot of the argument
it's never
right.
It's
Because a lot of the argument is that those guys that are those Hall of Famers, they're just built differently, and things came easier to them, and they can't understand why the guys that they're coaching, it doesn't come as easy to them.
I think the difference is, while Chauncey Billups was picked
Because like
high,
Magic Johnson was not a good coach.
No.
Clyde Drexler, not a good coach.
No, and I mean Michael Jordan wasn't a good owner. Like those, it's not a direct 1-to-1. And with Chauncey, and I've talked to him about this, is he had to go through like multiple teams and multiple efforts to kind of figure out who he was, where he was, even though he was
talking as a player.
Yeah, even though he was a high pick.
Because it wasn't as a coach.
No, but I'm saying he had to go through that. Like he knows what it's like to get kind of chewed up, spit out, and sent to another team.
Mm-hmm.
He knows what it's like to kind of find his place as a role guy, and then he knows what it's like to kind of been as a star and been, if not the one in Detroit, the 1A, 1B, and like so he's kind of been everywhere.
That was also at a time. I mean, that was the Rip Hamilton and Ben Wallace, and so where it wasn't. Typically, on a lot of those types of teams, you have your clearly defined one on those
that
multiple championship
so
teams.
Unique.
Yeah, they're such an outlier.
Yeah,
and that just doesn't happen.
No, but as far as like his playing career and the way he's viewed, it carries a lot of weight in that locker room. It does, because he has been at every point in time one of those guys, whether early career, late career, mid career. Like he does get that, and that's something I get from all of the players. Like those guys are pretty honest with me with how they feel about things, and that's never been a thing where guys have gone sideways about him. I don't think people think that he's perfect, the players, but I've had plenty of players over the years tell me things they didn't like about coaches that were egregiously worse.
Yeah.
So
I guess and where when it comes to the fans and in terms of like the last handful of games, it's not been pretty. The last 5-6 games or so, it's the result on the floor, right? They lost 5 of their last 6. Their last 3, they've lost their last 3. If we go and look at even their last 6 games, including the one with a win, they're being outscored by 15.7 points per game. If you just look at their last 5 losses, they're being outscored by 22.4 points per game. And so a lot of that just looks like, look, that's clearly not all coaching. Some of it's effort. Some of it's just, I mean, I don't know what it is, but what the fans want to see is some growth and progression and some close losses in there at least. Nobody expects them to come out here and have a 600 winning percentage, but they also don't want to come out. They don't want to watch them come out and get the doors blown off every game.
No, and I don't think that was happening until the last 2.
Well, we've got their last 5 losses, 137 and 114. You have a 103, 97 in there, which is what helps keep the average down a bit. 118, 105, which also helps keep it down a bit. And then a 25-point loss, 107, 102, and then 134, 89, which is a 45-point loss.
I think the last 2, like that's where, look.
When you're kind of bookended in there,
Jeff. Even if you keep that 46-point loss in, the Wizards have a worse net differential.
Okay, yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like
that's fair.
This is normal for a bottom 5 team in the NBA. This is what it is.
And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that we don't necessarily understand this is an old term, the process. And we've been told for years that we don't have the stomach for it. And I'm not going to lie to you, I don't necessarily have the stomach for it either. But I know that it's necessary. I just don't want to watch. I don't want to see these kinds of things that have happened in the last 6 games happen, where they just come out and get steamrolled every single night, and that's what's frustrating, And to continue.
Well,
seeing,
that's going to happen. They're going to get steamrolled because they don't have a talent. They have a talent deficit, and that's what came out of that meeting yesterday. Is when they talk about the elephant in the room, is that they're not good enough, and that you have to not accept that you're going to have some bad shooting nights, but you don't have the shooting talent. Like that's again, I keep using this line. It's not a bug; it's a feature. And you're hoping that Scoot Henderson develops as a shooter, that Shaden Sharp develops as a shooter, that Tumani Kamara continues to develop as a shooter, that Denny Avdia develops as a shooter, that maybe Donovan Clingan, maybe DeAndre Ayton, maybe like you're hoping for that internal growth,
right?
And you have to keep going at it. You have to keep getting shots up,
and we have to keep hoping. And the hard part is, like, even with Shea, this is year 3, or is it 4 for Sharp?
Year 3.
Year 3. And unfortunately, he's had some injury issues in pretty much every season so far. And so we still don't quite know. Like, we've seen flashes, and we can see athletically what he can do. We can see from a shot here and there, and from a lob here and there, and from a drive here and there. We've seen something, but we still don't know what Shaden Sharp really is. Like Ant, we know, and we know that Ant is probably not going to be a part of the future of this team. Shea, we don't know. Clingan, he played 20 minutes a game in college. Is he still at around the 13 to 14 minute mark a game this year? I'd like to see that climb up even just by a couple minutes, 16, 17. Get him in there a couple more minutes. And with Time Lord, it's tough to tell because we've seen him play, maybe 10, 12 games since he's been here. It's not been much. So it's hard to... It's hard as a fan, and I'm speaking as a fan here because I've been a fan my entire life. I'm born and raised here. I grew up. My grandfather, whenever we went over to his house for family holidays, he was sitting in his recliner with his transistor radio up to his ear if there was a game on, right? So it's still hard to be in this tough as a spot, and still have it feel like there's just not a clear direction on who we're supposed to be focused on. I know what Joe Cronin said going in, saying it was Scoot and Shea and Scoot and Shea at the very least. It's still hard because we still don't even know what Scoot is. He's shown some flashes and he's shown some not flashes.
Yeah.
So it's just
whatever a not flash is.
Well, but you know what?
I'm with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, whatever you want to use.
I mean, trust me, all the menopausal women out there would like to know what a not flash is. But it's still hard to see. It's still hard to find a direction. Like we have a Shaden who's supposed to be a transcendent athlete, and we have Scoot who we were told was a generational talent. We have Clingan who I hope and pray that he turns out to be. I don't think anybody thinks he's going to be a 30-minute a night guy based on anything because he's so big. But we're having a hard time seeing the direction, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's again the
and maybe once a trade deadline hits, and if Ant and Grant are still here,
but it's like the trade deadline isn't solving anything.
No, I know, but it can help. It can help be a little bit of that compass. Whether that needle is still a little shaky,